Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So I just got here, just got out of traffic. There was construction. I was delayed a couple of minutes. And then I get her here on this call and also on this audio. And I said, what do you want to talk about? And she's like, well, you know what? There's a lot of anxiety going on and a lot of stress. Let's talk about that. I'm like, oh, okay. I think things happen for a reason. And that's why we're here. Lots of people dealing with massive anxiety right now. And she is somebody as a life coach that can help you get through all of that, realize some different things you might not have thought of in terms of energy, in terms of meditation. And she's also the CEO and founder of the Elevated Human Experience. Rhee is back with us on the program. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Doing amazing, Steve. So happy to be back here with you and be back on Zoom and audio as well.
Absolutely. And I think things happen for a reason. So here I am saying like, yeah, it was a little stressful through the traffic. All good. No issues. But for a lot of people, that kicks it up. That's one more thing on their plate of anxiety that they have to deal with. What's your starting point when you work with somebody?
Really, I wanted to kind of share with you, and I said this before we got out live, and I said, I want to just do a really quick breathing exercise. And then you mentioned, let's just do it on air, right? So what I want to do is just really practice this with you. And I'm assuming that as soon as you feel it, your audience is going to feel it as well.
Sure.
Everything in life is vibration. And a lot of times our mind and everything is just taking us in multiple places, right? And we get into massive anxiety because of the fact that we're worried about the future. Oh my God, I have a call with Jan. I'm running late. Oh my God, I have to do this. I have to do that. Never mind all the things that happened in the past from the minute you woke up to where we are, right? So the biggest reason for the breathing exercise is really teaching people how to learn how to be present. Our English language is so beautiful, right? There's so many things in our words. And I truly believe that our greatest gift is our ability to be present. Get it? Gift and present.
Really okay, cool. Fair enough.
Right?
Gotcha.
So with that, just a really quick, simple breathing exercise. So what I would love for you to do is just practice this with me. And for those audiences that are either watching the video or listening online, do this as well. Because literally, when we can have the power of the calmness of our mind, we can do anything. And our mind serves us in one of two ways. It's going to either be our servant, where it controls us, or it's going to be our servant where we control it, I should say, or be our master where it controls us, right? So the biggest thing that I want to teach people is how to really master their mind. Once we master our mind and we learn simple laws of the universe, we literally have the tools and the power to create whatever reality that we want to experience. So what I want to do with you is just a simple 4-step breathing exercise. What I would love to ask is kind of just relax your body, right? And breathe in through the nose. And if you can, even put your palms up on your lap, right? So you're sitting in stance and put your palms up in your lap and breathe in through the nose. Take that deep breath and make it past your diaphragm so your belly is actually swelling up. So you should feel your belly expanding, not contracting, but expanding. So expand it, and then we're going to hold it for a slow 4 seconds. 1, 2, 4. And then slowly breathe out like you're breathing out through a straw. Slow breath out. And then do that again, in through the nose. Expanding that belly, breathe it in, hold it, relax your shoulders. And then slowly breathe out like you're breathing throughout a straw. I'm going to do it 2 more times. Breathe in through the nose. Expanding that belly. Expand. And then slowly breathe out. And last one. Breathing through the nose, expanding that belly, holding it. Slowly breathe out. How do you feel, Steve?
Chill. And what's interesting, when we say hold for 4 seconds, we did. Most people don't. It's their perception of what 4 is, and they don't get the full, deep, hold it breath, which is the game changer right there.
Mm-hmm. There's actually science behind it. So we have trillions of cells that literally create our body and our physical makeup. And each one of our cells, right, we have like a capacity, and most of us are running on empty, meaning there's not enough oxygen or air in those cells. So what happens is when we do that breathing exercise, it actually expands the cells and it gets the oxygen into the cells. So it expands and it's almost like filling up the cells with positive energy. And not only that, during that same time, it actually causes us to slow our heart rate down. So our heart rate slows down, our cells expand, and we have the power and more of the ability to be calm and be present in the moment.
Is that cell expansion, Yun? Is it that fast? Wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And yet, because of the programs that we're so used to in our body, it goes right back into it when we start thinking about worries, our fears, or we start going back into the past. So, two things, right? Whenever someone's feeling depressed or feeling bad and negative, usually it's thoughts and regrets from the past. When we're feeling overwhelmed and in fear or anxiety, it's worries about the future. And the most important thing, just like we discussed at the beginning of the call, our most greatest gift is the ability to be present in the moment. See, in energy, there is no past, present, or future. Everything is now. And everything is energy, which is vibration, which is frequency. So what we feel now is literally what's creating the next future, the next moment, the next moment, the next moment, the next moment. And yet we as humans have been programmed to give so much of our power away, looking at our current conditions, our current environment, our current to-do list to control the way we feel, which in fact, that's all reactionary. Now think about this too. Remember I told you the English language is so beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
Reaction and creation, same letters, spelled differently. And most people are living in reaction when the truth of the matter is we as humans are born in creation. We're not meant to be reacting, we're meant to be creating.
And you can't create if you're reacting and freaking out over the future or dwelling in the past. When you're here, centered, which is what the breathing exercise did, if you're mindful of your breathing, you're here because that's what you're focusing on, right? Mm-hmm. Is for people that deal with that massive anxiety, all these situations that crop up, obviously breathing exercise so impactful. What are some of the other things that they need to be mindful of to minimize? And anxiety is normal for all of us, but to minimize it.
So I think that what would really help people is to really understand how that anxiety comes about, like how it comes about and why it comes about. And the reason why is there's actually something called a law of transmutation of energy, which means that nothing is ever just still. All the energy is consistently transmutating all the time, right? So everything is transmutating in energy and then has to show up in physical form. So where does anxiety actually stem from? Anxiety actually stems from our thoughts of worries, doubts, and fears, right? Our thoughts of worries, doubts, and fears creates a feeling inside of us that gets expressed through the laws of transmutation of energy, and it shows up as anxiety, right? It actually shows up as fear, right? That feeling of fear. So worries, doubts, and fears turns into more of that fear emotion. That fear emotion gets translated into our body as anxiety. And anxiety over time causes procrastination. It causes dis-ease within the body. That dis-ease within the body actually manifests as in sicknesses or in chaos showing up and our body not being healthy. So let's go even further up the ladder, right? So where does that fear, worries, and doubt come from, right? I love this. The worries, fears, and doubts comes from ignorance. And ignorance is not stating a good thing or a bad thing. Ignorance, all it's saying is we've never done it before. We don't know what it is. right? We don't know what it is. So immediately when we go to think about something we've never done, we go to think about doing something, right, that hasn't been experienced, our mind automatically goes into the programming of worries, doubts, and fears.
Warning, warning, warning. Yeah, it really does.
Right? So then now that we're aware where anxiety comes from, like, how do we combat that? How do we combat that? And this is so simple and easy. What's the opposite of ignorance?
Opposite of what?
Ignorance. What's
Opposite
the
of,
opposite of not knowing?
well, obviously knowing.
Knowing, right?
Being aware, sure.
Right. So the opposite of ignorance is knowledge. So how do we gain knowledge on something that we've never done before, or something that's coming up in the future that we've never experienced in a positive way? How do we gain knowledge about it?
You don't know it until you know it.
And yet we can actually use our intellectual factors. See, we've been programmed to go off of our senses, our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our ears, and our hands, to see, smell, taste, touch, and hear, right? To allow our brain to compute whatever these feelings are. But in actuality, we have deeper powers that are so much more self-serving, such as our ability to reason, our willpower, right? Our perception. One massive one, our imagination. So if we actually use our intellectual factors of imagination and say, well, what would I imagine it to be like? So give me something that you would love to do, Steve, like something that would like excite the living daylights out of you for you to be doing that you've never done before.
Skydive.
Skydive. Okay, perfect.
I have a gift certificate. I mentioned it to somebody, and they gave it to me for my birthday last year. Haven't gone yet. It's on the list.
When you go to think about doing it, does it kind of scare you a little bit?
Of course.
Right? The worries, doubts. What if I fall? What if the pull string doesn't jump in? What if the tandem guy or the guy that does the tandem with me is not as experienced, right? Immediately, right? So what can we do to use our imagination to gain that knowledge?
When you say gain the knowledge, you mean?
Gain
What?
the knowledge of the experience that we desire.
Visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm jumping out of the plane. I'm floating down. I'm prepared for what I'm going to experience, the wind, all of that. And same thing if I have to go to a party, a meeting or something. I play it out in my head. Yeah, all right, I'm there. Who am I going to meet? What's the best thing I should be wearing? I visualize things.
Right. How amazing is that, right? You kicked in your imagination to be able to visualize the things, right? You can even go a step further and say, well, who else does skydiving that loves it? Right? Oh my God, and they're so good at it. What else do they do with skydiving? You can even go further and say, what are the mechanics of skydiving? Whatever's going to put your body at ease, right? And then once you get that knowledge, what happens is you get excited, right? All of a sudden, your body becomes calmer. You become much more relaxed, if you will, right? And your body actually wants to take action. And you go from fear to faith, which both fear and faith are both emotions caused by the unknown.
And if you spoke to me 10 years ago, probably wouldn't be on my radar to skydive. But in my journey, it's like, yeah, I wanted to do it in the past. Now I'm fine with it. I will say somebody I know, I met them very recently last year. They went. I was actually going to go with them. They had an extra ticket, but the weather wasn't great. So a few days later, they did go, but they told me that on the way down, they started spinning, spiraling. And that's on my radar. Don't like to do this. Not many people do. However, then I check into the data, and that's very rare that happens. It was just one of those things. If it happens, it happens. But it was all good. Nothing happened except for that. So once you're prepared for it and visualize it, all right, is what it is.
Right. But it's so funny. Like, a lot of ladies that are pregnant will be able to kind of relate to this. It's funny how when you're pregnant as a woman, all of a sudden, like random people come up to you and share their most horrific stories. It's kind of weird, right? But at the end, or like if you think about it, right? You go to do something new. My husband and I have been in real estate for a long time, and anybody that goes and jumps into real estate, and we actually taught and trained a lot of people that came into the industry as well. And if you think about it, they would say, "Oh, I really wanted to do real estate. It was like literally the keys to my freedom." but everybody told me not to do it, right? Like the success rate was so small and blah, blah, blah. Like everybody, and by no desire of their own, like they don't mean to do this, but this is the level of awareness, right? No one means to do this, but everybody is programmed almost to dump their own fears, worries, and traumas onto other people.
Why do they do that?
Programs. Because energetically, we've been programmed under lack and fear. Programmatically, we've been living under fight or flight, right? For the survival method, for what the creation is. And again, I'm so grateful for all of that because it is through that energy that allowed the expansion and the abundance for where we are as humans today.
Why do we
Now,
share it? Why do we share it with others, Jan? Like, all right, so I get it. We're programmed that way. We immediately think of the worst case scenario, if you will, and that cripples us with fear and anxiety and all of that. But why do we share that with other people? Why do we want them to know?
I truly believe it's because we are programmed. That's a way of showing us that we care. Like, think about us as parents, right? We say, oh, don't do that because we don't want you to get hurt, right? We don't want you to take that risk because what if you fail? It's going to hurt to fail, right?
Right.
So I truly believe it's because we care. So the intent is amazing. Execution, maybe not, right? The intent is amazing. Like, oh, don't touch that burner. You might get hurt. Don't try that new career because you know what? The success rate is really small. But again, it's not because they don't want you to do it. And it's not because they don't really like, it's really because it's like, they want to keep us safe. And if you think about us as humans, our ego works really hard to keep us safe.
And I get it. It's coming from a good place. Like,
Yes.
As a parent, you'd say to your kids, hey, well, I remember this happening to me, so I want you to be aware of it. You're doing the same thing you would do to yourself, except you're doing it to a loved one because you'd be saying the same thing to yourself. Well, remember, Jan, the time that you did that, your brain is saying that, that was kind of scary. So I just want you to know. And now you're sharing it with somebody else who you care about. Yeah. Because you're programmed.
Right. And that's what I love. So my husband and I are both Proctor Gallagher Institute consultants, and we teach a program called Think It Into Results, which is a 6-month program that teaches people how to think and operate like the 1%ers of the world, right? Now, the 1%ers of the world actually own about 96% of the wealth, but it goes way further than that. They're the ones that created the world that the masses live in. And now we have access to all of this information because of the use of technology and our world becoming smaller and smaller. And it really is now time, I truly believe, an amazing time for us to be humans, where science and theology are coming together, right? To really provide the evidence of how powerful we are as humans and that we have the power and access to everything and anything to go and create and live the life that we desire, as long as we believe it. Right? As long as we believe it. So I know this whole conversation started with anxiety, which I think a lot of people are in. And I think that it's really amazing to be aware that another reason why people feel anxiety and we feel anxious, think about the number of data and information we consume in a given day.
Yeah.
Right? It's like information overload. We consume more information in one day than most people did in a full year in the early 1900s. So we're just walking around consuming more and more information, right? And our body doesn't really move towards what it is that we truly want. So the things that we desire, our knowing doing gap gets wider and wider, and that space in between is anxiety.
Do you think it's just overload? Like we are just overloaded, and anxiety is normal, and we all deal with it, but add that information on top of it, and it's almost mind-boggling to try and process it.
And that's why I truly believe this entire journey is all about growing in self-awareness, right? Which is exactly why I believe the thing that needs to be really preached to the masses is taking that time for you, disconnect from technology. Like when you wake up in the morning, right? Don't check your phone. Give yourself, Steve, if I can be honest with you, everyone that I know that was successful that I looked up to had a morning routine. And I was running around with my head cut off, running in circles, right? Spinning around and information overload, chasing success, pleasing my husband, my clients, my kids, my cup was on empty. So the thought of actually spending an hour in the morning to myself, I was like, who has the time for that? right? Who has the time for that? Well, it got to a point where I had no option. I really needed to change something. So guess what I started with? 6 minutes a day. 6 minutes a day. Because it is more powerful to give yourself 6 minutes a day every day of the week versus 3 hours in one day and never do it again for the next 6 days. Right? Our programs and our subconscious mind that creates our reality has to be spaced repetition. Right? We don't learn how to walk because we practice walking for 12 hours in one day and then never walked again for the next month. We learned how to walk, and that became a program because we got up every single time and did it in spaced repetition. So we got better and better and better. Then we were able to run, get better and better and better. Driving, brushing your teeth. Nothing is a program until it's actually repetition and programmed into our mind.
And that's the only way you make change. Like, to
Right.
your point, great to have a spa day. This weekend coming up. All right, so you're going to do an hour or two, whatever it is. Well, that's great. But that's not the repetition creating the habit whereby the 6 minutes just keep repeat, repeat, repeat. And then that's how the bad habit got in.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
And a lot of that bad habit is the repetition of our inner voice.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Why did you do that again? Oh, did I say the right thing? Did I say the wrong thing? Right? Those are programs, our inner voice of our programs. They operate. So, huge believer, your morning space is your time to reset every day. Every day. Every day you get to reset and become a new version of yourself if you so choose. However, if we wake up and go right to our phone, we go to our to-do list, we're reactivating everything that we were and all the programs that's been operating us, and we find ourselves in that hamster wheel. So if we can just create the practice, again, 6 minutes a day. I started with 6 minutes a day. I'm now up to like an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's my time and I love it. I would never, ever want to sacrifice anything for it. And yet 6 minutes a day is it's so worth it. It will change your world to find that quiet time, to find your peace, to breathe, set intentions.
I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm starting fresh, and I'm not kidding. I wish we had 6 minutes. We don't. But I'll say this weekend, I laid in bed and I was just like chilling. Normally I don't, I'm like nonstop, go, 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 go. And it was kind of like that the rest of the weekend, but I wanted to take some time. And I did, but I didn't do anything. Basically, I just sat there, a little phone action here and there. But it needs to be on a regular basis. And the 6 minutes, when you think of it, out of 24 hours, just do it. You have it even just to have the quiet for the 6 minutes. Game changer. Game changer.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Game changer. So Steve, we're going to talk next week. You're going to do 6 minutes every day for the next 7 days, right? You're going to do the breathing exercise. I highly recommend that breathing technique that you and I did together. Wake up, do that, set some intentions, right? I am going to have a magical day today, right? And then say some affirmation like, I am so happy and grateful now that I have everything that I need and everything comes easily. Something to that effect, like whatever it is, but 6 minutes. And I can't wait to talk to you about those results because it is life-changing. It's simple and easy.
I might even take it one step further and spend 8 minutes and take those 2 and write in a gratitude journal, which has been on my radar forever. What's the best way to reach you, Yun?
So you can find me at yunrhee.co, which is my website, or I'm also on elevatedhumanexperience.com. And I'm also on all the socials. It's just as Yun Rhee. There's many different ways to get in touch with me. I really appreciate it. And yes, more importantly, get into action. Get into action, right? Because you deserve it and you're worth it.
And it works. And it's scientifically proven, even the breathing technique. And again, I've done them before. Hearing you do the count was impactful for me because if I'm doing it, I'm thinking 1, 2, 3. That's not a full second. And it doesn't give you the same benefits when it's a full 4 seconds, truly 4 seconds. Yun, thank you so much for being here today. Learned a lot, and we have homework, but it's good work.
Absolutely. It's life-changing. Thank you, Steve, and I look forward to our next call.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.